This is Ringler Radio, where you get all the latest news and information about settlement solutions, litigation, mediation, and structured financial security from Ringler, the largest and most experienced company of settlement consultants in the United States. Ringler has been helping injured people and their families since 1975. Ringler Radio is made possible in part by American General, Liberty Mutual, MetLife, Mutual of Omaha, New York Life, Pacific Life, and Prudential. Now join Ringler Radio host Larry Cohen.
Well, hello and welcome to Ringler Radio, everyone. I'm Larry Cohen, your host, and I'm certainly glad you could join us again today. Well, unlike physical injury cases, which receive tax-free status in a structured settlement, cases such as age and race discrimination, sexual harassment, wrongful termination, and divorce do not. Yet claimants can still structure these non-qualified cases and do so with an advantageous tax outcome. Today we'll discuss the arena of non-qualified settlements and how the recent Tax Reform Act is having an impact. And serving as my co-host today is my friend and Ringler colleague, Cindy Chanley. Cindy heads up Ringler's Kentucky and Southern Indiana offices, and I love having you on the show. Welcome back, Cindy.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate it.
Terrific. Well, there's a good reason we keep bringing back attorney Robert Wood to Ringler Radio. As the managing partner at Wood LLP in San Francisco, when it comes to understanding the tax implications of settlements and judgments, Rob has simply become the preeminent source. So, Rob, I'm welcoming you back to Ringler Radio. We always look forward to your perspective. Welcome aboard.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Terrific. Terrific. So, Rob, for now, let's take a look at the tax implications of structuring versus accepting a lump sum settlement, of structuring the non-qualified cases such as divorce and wrongful termination, sexual harassment, environmental cleanup, etc. Give us some insight into that arena specifically.
Sure. Well, I guess as everyone knows, the non-qualified cases, taxable money as opposed to a tax-free physical injury damages, taxable money is going to be taxable, and the key question, of course, is when. And so, I've long seen these done, maybe because of what I do for a living, but I've long thought that more of them should be done. And part of it, of course, is going to depend on the needs of the plaintiff. So, if it's Larry, as you just said, an employment case or something, the wage piece, of course, you can't structure, so the wage piece is paid out as wages, but there's typically a bunch of other money and that would normally be reported on a 1099, and would the plaintiff want that lump sum that's taxable then, all in one lump sum, or it paid out over time? So I think we've always seen some of those, and my own prediction is we'll now see more.
Thanks, Rob. So once the defendant and the plaintiff have come to an agreement and they decide to include a portion of the settlement in periodic payments, you know that we have special language that we have to include in the settlement agreement, and we always pay really close attention to that, and I'm sure you do as well. Are there any new elements or new language that you might suggest for these settlement agreements as a result of the new tax law?
Well, number one, you're certainly right that the special language has to be there, and I guess from a from a timing perspective, I'm sure I always like to have a little advance notice of things and not get a rush sort of the night before something is due. And I'm sure all your listeners are the same way. It's really unfortunate when there's a big rush, and sometimes there's not enough time to make it happen appropriately. So, I think the same old rules apply there, which is try to get in early, try to give advice early, try to get it so lawyers who are structuring or clients who are structuring have adequate time to make a decision. But in terms of the language, no, I don't think there's any change. I do think that there is, and going back to my sort of premise that there will be more non-qualified structures, I think because of the change that we haven't really talked about yet, which is the lack of miscellaneous deductions, the lack of deductions for attorney's fees in lots of cases, there will be a lot of people who are getting I guess, sort of the ridiculous premise I said about a sexual harassment case. Although I don't think that is likely in the end to have the woman in my example, get $600,000 and be taxed on $1 million. But there are a lot of cases where people will get taxed on more money than they get, and I think, and obviously these are taxable cases, so I think that is going to make structured settlements of taxable cases more attractive to stretch the payments out, and thereby help minimize the adverse tax consequence.
Well, there seems to be an issue of fundamental fairness at play here with with having the plaintiff have to cover the taxation on the full amount when they're only getting a piece of it. So you can just foresee that there's going to be a lot of back and forth in Congress about how to tweak that, and I know we can look forward to that. We all heard about the fact that there's going to be tax reform 2 or tax reform Section B coming up soon. They're going to try to do some other things, and I can imagine there'll be a lot of voices in people's ears on how to fix some of these things. Well,
yeah, and Larry, I agree with you. I mean, and I've already heard from some people that are saying, I don't know if they will, but they're saying that they're going to sue the IRS, they're going to sue the government, and using the terms that Larry you just used, sort of fundamental fairness. How can you get 600 and be taxed on $1 million? There has to be a deduction, and so I mean, I'm not a litigator, so I guess I view these things as, you don't want to stick your head up and become an example necessarily. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of movement in the coming year, that's for sure.
Well, I think what we're going to be doing is looking for logic in an illogical world right now, but hopefully some of that will come to pass, because we don't want to see a more onerous outcome for the general populace than it has to be. So finally, Rob, what other nuggets have you discovered in the new tax law, even beyond the structured settlement realm, that our broader audience would want to take note of? What may be in there that maybe a lot of us don't know is there? What do you see?
Oh boy! So yeah, it's obviously a massive tax bill. It did a lot of things. It a lot of good things. I think. I mean, it increased the estate and gift tax exemption way up to $11 million a person. Basically doubled it. So I think an awful lot of people who have homes that have highly appreciated and never thought they'd be paying estate tax, but might have under the old rules. Now probably won't. That obviously may change. There's already talk for changing that again. But I guess focusing on this area, what I think is a change that, although we may have talked about it briefly, I think people still are still finding hard to accept, and that is, no deduction for lawyers' fees. And I think it may change the way that we think about what's a taxable case and what isn't a taxable case. Mm-hmm. So, for example, for a true PI case, I mean, no question is physical injury. Let's say it's a catastrophic injury, but let's say there are significant punitive damages and significant interest. Mm-hmm. We all know, I think, that the punitive damages and the interest piece of that is taxable.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so we've always dealt with that. I mean, I think the structured settlement industry has. And if, let's say you've got a case with a judgment, so there's no settlement agreement, or you've got a case with a judgment that went on appeal, and then it's settling. Mm-hmm. So there's a compensatory tax-free part of it, and then there's the taxable part. But now we have to get used to the fact that the taxable part isn't just the money that the plaintiff gets, or plaintiffs, plural, might get. Now it's 100% of the money. And the lawyer's fees are not deductible. So, I mean, it's a new ball game in that sense. And that's back to the $1,600,000 example. And so I think because of that, I would predict there will be more structures done for taxable money, and the taxable money may be an entirely taxable case, or it may be a case like I just described, where some, maybe even the bulk of the money comes as compensatory tax-free damages, but some of the money, And in some cases, it may be the majority of the money is taxable.
Well, that's interesting. In a typical 104A2 case, where it's a tax-free transaction, it's a tax-free structured settlement, are you saying that to the extent that there are attorney fees that have been, paid on that case, that the plaintiff who's getting the tax-free payments on their portion of the case, they may have to pay even on the attorney fees on those types of cases?
No, sorry
Okay.
if I confused it. No. So it's a good question to ask and an important point to clarify.
Yes.
So if it's a tax-free case, 100% tax-free compensatory damages for physical injury, then I guess you could say whether the person is getting 100% of the money or 60% of the money or whatever percent, it's all tax-free, so it doesn't matter. And that tax-free, the lawyer has to pay tax on the lawyer's fees. Hopefully that's not a surprise to the lawyers. But the plaintiff is okay. There's no adverse tax consequence, no matter how high the attorney's fees are.
Exactly.
However, the moment that you change that example and say, well, what if it's 50% compensatory and 50% punitive damages? Then half of the damages are tax-free and half are taxable, but you've got to prorate the attorney's fees as well. They're 50-50. And so the client in that example gets, on the punitive side, gets taxed on more money than he or she gets because of this new deduction rule.
The add-on of the attorney fee there. Well, that's it's an amazing change for a lot of people. It's going to be interesting, as I said, to see how this all shakes out. You mentioned there's an increase in the estate tax exemption amount. Is that right?
11 million.
Yeah,
11
million apiece. Yeah,
that's
22 million a couple.
Yeah, and that's an important feature because we in the structured settlement business, when we put together cases with a lifetime income with a big guarantee period, a 30-year guarantee or a 40-year guarantee, and somebody passes away, then that roll up of that guarantee, people are always concerned about, is it going to exceed that estate tax provision or exemption? And this will help in a lot of those kinds of cases to take like minors cases and give them maybe a greater guarantee to protect their future without impacting potentially the estate tax provision. So that's a good thing. So there are a lot of things to discuss, and we kind of scratched the surface here today, Rob, but I think it's a good introduction to it, and don't be surprised if we're back to you later. And
anytime.
Come back with some other issues that I think will help our entire audience feel a little bit better about. So with that, Rob, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Thanks. My phone number is 415-834-0113. My email address is wood@woodllp.com, so wood@woodlarrypaul.com. Either of those should work. Terrific.
And Cindy, how about yourself, if someone wanted to reach you?
Yes. You can call me at 502-569-9339, or you can email me at cchanley, CCHANLEY at ringlerassociates.com.
Terrific. And all of you out there can reach any Ringler Associate on ringlerassociates.com. It's a great website. It's got a lot of great information. I encourage you to go there. Of course, you can also, when you're on that site, you can see all the Ringler Radio shows, and we've done hundreds of them by now. You can also go to ringlerradio.com to hear the shows, or Legal Talk Network, or you can go to iTunes and download on your iPhone as you go around the park and listen at your leisure with your little earbuds in. So that'll be fun. And again, I want to thank you, Rob, for being a tremendous resource to us, and we'll reach out to you again, I'm sure, in the near future.
Sounds good. My pleasure.
And Cindy, thanks for being a great co-host.
Thanks so much.
Great. And for the rest of you out there, go have a great day. Bye-bye.
There's a Ringler consultant in all the major cities of the U.S. No one has more experienced experts in the settlement business than Ringler. Check out our website at www.ringlerassociates.com for the best information for injured parties, attorneys, and claims professionals to find the Ringler advisor nearest you. When it's your interests at stake in a lawsuit settlement, you want only the best, most objective financial plan. You can count on Ringler Advisors to create a customized plan that meets the financial needs of you and your family for the future. Visit ringlerassociates.com to learn more. Thanks for listening to Ringler Radio, celebrating more than a decade of podcasting and over 2 million listeners. Think of Ringler, the objective settlement advisors with more than 140 consultants in 60 cities nationwide. Visit ringlerassociates.com today. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.